3, 2, 1. Hey, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're at in the US and around the world. Not sure where you're at, but definitely happy that you're joining us on Baseball Outside the Box. Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for spreading the show. Again, I keep repeating, we're over in 100 countries, and it's all because of our listeners. God bless you. Thank you very much for what you do for the show. We're just trying to get information out to coaches, players, and parents in the game of baseball, professionals, whoever it may be, just to help them out in any way possible, and also to educate them in the game around the world, what is going on. We are going to be expanding the show, just so you know, even into Major League Baseball, different guests. We want to highlight different people in professional baseball, minor league baseball, college, all kinds of levels, bring us some interesting stories. So we are going to be expanding the show a little bit. I think you'll like it a lot. Well, listen, speaking about expanding, guess what? We are heading to India. Yes, the country of India, the population of 1.4 billion people that live there, and Major League Baseball is doing a lot of work there because they see the importance of it. They see a lot of cricket players, and we're going to tell you a lot of history behind it. I got a great guest I met at the ABCA, good friend. He is doing some great things there in India, and we're going to also talk about, remember, the $1 Million Arm, the big competition, right? Later on, they sent two guys that actually won the competition to the U.S. to train with our good friend for many years, Tom House. He was portrayed in that movie, The $1 Million Arm. We're going to talk to Vamsi about that. So let me introduce our guest right away in India right now, but he is traveling in the U.S., and we'll tell you in a minute why he's doing it. I want to introduce our friend, Vamsi Kondreddy. Vamsi, how you doing, buddy?
Thank you, Peter, and thank you so much. It's a really honor for me to be invited in this show. I'm excellent right now in Boston doing my US travels to understand the baseball ecosystem in US.
Absolutely. And folks, just so you don't know this, you definitely, I'm going to tell you about this. Vamsi is the founder, but also the commissioner of the Premier League Baseball in India. It's a professional league going to start up in 2025. Vamsi is going to tell us all about it. That's why he's traveling to US to talk to a lot of people here, man. This guy does his homework. He's a businessman. He's a baseball guy. He understands it. I had a good talk with him at the American Baseball Coaches Association. And you know, when you talk to somebody, you understand that they get it and they understand what they're trying to accomplish there in India. A lot of great things in India. Vamsi, let's do this. So, India, man, the population is incredible. I know, I'm familiar that, I want to go back to the history. I know it was founded in 1983. The Federation was there. Major League Baseball is doing a lot of work there. There's some TV, some games that are being broadcast. Obviously, they see some great expansion into India and obviously producing great players there eventually. But tell us a little bit about the history and how it was founded, how baseball was founded there and how it's kind of organized.
Yeah, it's been there for quite some time. Like if going back to history, it started way back when the World War II time, when the US forces were there in eastern part of that country, and especially that is where that baseball got introduced to India. But formally, when you say in the 1983 is the seed of the baseball has been got into the India. It's 1983 where the federation got formally incorporated. And India had first international baseball tournament. It's like I would say match in 1987 itself. So it's not, baseball is not at all new to India. It's been there already there for 3 decades. And coming to my story, like in 1992, when I just started my college education, I used to play a lot of baseball. So it's maybe a bit kind of optimistic to say that there was a lot of baseball before cricket. Way back in 1965, when my grandfather used to actually really play softball, that time it is not really been called a baseball, softball, but there is a lot of history. So just answer to your question on that, yes, 1983 is the federation started. India has been playing with international matches, also been part of the Asian Cup Championship from that time onwards.
Yeah, I was noticing, I remember that they're part of the Asian Baseball Federation. They're obviously part of the World Baseball Softball Confederation, the governing body of the sport worldwide. Now, here's the interesting part. India, big cricket country, right? Now, one thing they're used to is sitting around watching cricket for a long time. So watching a baseball game is fast for them. For us, it's slow in the US, right? The game goes 3 hours, 3.5, 4. Cricket can go days, even though they cut some of it down. It's interesting. Cricket and baseball have some similarities, but you got to get players or kids who are accustomed to seeing cricket a lot and see a goal. You got to get them to play baseball. How do you do that?
See, I would look at these two sports, especially the cricket and as well as the baseball. In fact, I would also wanted to include the softball as well. So if I look at fundamentally, the skill is like those are the bat and ball sport. It's a bat and ball sport. I would say it's maybe by a gene, like it's our in DNA. Indians love to play this bat and ball sport. It's allowed to really go. I don't think we need a special trained academy or like a coach to really someone to teach us how to hold a bat and how to throw a ball. It's part of our DNA. So the question about when I started this way back in 2019 as a company, as a for-profit company, Dream Olympic Sports, we actually understood that India has been changing dramatically in the last 2 decades because our service sector, especially, so US people will very well know how talented the Indian guys in terms of the IT is concerned. In terms of international exposure is concerned, Indians been doing traveling to the US and other countries as well. So that is where you can see a lot of similarities. Like a cricket has been very much been there with the baseball friend. The underlying skill of a bat and ball sport, it's been one and the same. So to answer to your question about how do we really take this talent, so I would want to say the kind of population you repeatedly been mentioned, we are a population of 1.4 billion. There is a study in one of these the top consulting firms which I've been hired in when the 2019 when we started this company. They estimate that there are around 10 million people who love to play bat and ball sport in this country every year. The 10 million is such a huge number. So I am really quite excited and fascinated to see these numbers, the kind of interest among these the players they have on the bat and ball sport. Then that is where actually really thought anyhow there was a big history behind that also. I was also be a baseball player, but the whole idea of taking into thinking about baseball as a professional sport in India, that is where we looked at the number and see that there is a business opportunity. That is our whole concept of professional baseball come into the picture.
Yeah, and I could see Major League Baseball is looking at those numbers too, the big numbers. and then when you look at like you said, the comparison, of the throwing, the hitting, yes, it's stiff, a little stiffer the arm, but they're throwing hard and they're hitting, at all levels, low, up, high. I mean, they can hit everywhere. I can see that, and I can also see the fans coming out because now it's a shorter game too. Not that they don't watch cricket for many days, but now it's a short game. I think that helps. And I noticed MLB, MLB sent envoys in 2006 to help coaches out there. I also noticed that the first field was broken in 2017. What's the fields look like out there, and kind of the organization? Where are all the clubs? Are they clubs or teams? Where are they all located? And how many fields you think do you have in the country? A number of players, kind of that background.
So let me go one by one. First, let's talk about the federation. There is a baseball federation, which is Amateur Baseball Federation of India. And that federation we are right now with the 29 states in India. Almost every state has its state association. So from there, we will go into the very granularity of it. Then is a district. Every district has an association. I don't claim every state association, every district association is super active, but there is already a structure in place for the baseball, as similar to the cricket itself. It's nothing to be invented. It is already been well there. So coming to the culture of the club culture, India has never been into the a club, especially it's only started from the 2008 when IPL start having these professional clubs, and IPL got cricket got that kind of a commercialization of the cricket. That is where the concept of the club has till then there are clubs, but those are not at a magnitude of like having a huge fan base. It's always been fan is been associated with the our national sports teams rather than the club teams, except maybe couple of football clubs there which has been started by the like maybe in the before the like maybe like independence and all. So coming to like the clubs, there are like a quite a number of clubs. Having said that, there is 29 states, and I would say there would be like two like a 5 clubs in each state. That itself is says that there would be around like 70 to 8 clubs are there.
Hmm.
But right now, what are they doing? They've been very limited to their geographical area. Like those club is actually having doing maybe weekend matches or maybe long weekend matches with the names whether like maybe like cities which is very adjacent to that and maybe towns. There is no platform to really kind of bring all these clubs into one national level event. So so federation has been doing the national event because it's a federation function, but no one really kind of try to actually take this all the independent clubs and give them a platform to actually show their talent in the baseball. So the idea of this, like when we really go wanted to like maybe like just to before we talk about that professional part of it. So idea is that we have floated the confederation of the baseball clubs. The whole objective of this confederation is that giving these independent small clubs, which don't probably may not have a fan base beyond their town. So we wanted to create them a platform, come and actually play with the other clubs, which can actually really kind of both like as a development of the sport and also show that talent on where they stand in terms of the other clubs they are. That's how the club things is actually falling out.
Yeah, that's interesting. And folks, if you're joining us on Facebook, thanks for joining us, man. We got a lot of people. We love it. We're live on Facebook. We'd love to take your questions. If you have any, just type them in the comments section. I see Bruno Karen, great friend. He is the Vice President of Croatia Baseball, also the Secretary General of the European Baseball Federation, WBSC, European Baseball Federation, running for president coming up in February. We'll see how he does there. Wish him the best. And Don Freeman, former national team coach, gold medal national team coach with USA Baseball, another great friend and mentor of mine, on listening on Facebook, actually watching and listening. So folks, if you got questions, put them on the notes there and I'll be glad to ask them the questions. Vamsi is very, very talented, understands the game. He knows what's going on in India. Vamsi, I was curious, cricket, you're catching a hard ball with your hand, right? I mean, I have a friend of mine who said, hey, Pete, you guys use a glove. We don't have a glove. We don't need a glove. We got tough hands. You got a cricket paddle, obviously. It doesn't seem like you need a lot of equipment. Now, baseball, you got to have a bat, glove, spikes. It's a costly game in some ways. How does that affect? Does it affect the young kids playing in India?
See, cricket also need a lot of equipment. As a batter, you need all the like leg pads, gloves, bats, helmet. Especially when you are facing the fast bowlers, looking at the speed, like maybe like when you're talking about the speed of the maximum pitch speed, it may be 1.5 miles per hour, which is equivalent to around like a 150 kilometers per hour. And if I really convert into that, so there are bowlers, even the cricket also right now they are bowling at a speed of 140, 146 kilometers per hour. It's almost the same speed that where the baseball pitching happens. So definitely when batters are facing the face ball, they need all this equipment to protect the body, head gear and the body gear and leg gear and everything. So I don't see an issue in terms of like comparing the cost of the gear for the sports of the cricket and baseball. But the challenge is that the availability, when you look at the availability and affordability, see, the kind of supply of the baseball gear is very, very, very low in India. And the cricket gear is, you can find it anywhere. I'll give you a very best example. When I started playing in 1992, like when I asked my parents to give me the money to buy the baseball slugger, He says that bat, usually that's cricket bat. They say that it's 1/10 of the price you will get another cricket bat. Why can't you go and play cricket then? See, with the
Yeah.
1/10 of the price of the baseball slugger, you are getting a cricket bat. So why can't you actually play the cricket? So the challenge even now today is that, so people can afford, but the prices is not competitive here. The reason because there is a less supply. So all that, like when you're talking about whether it's a wooden bats, whether like aluminum bats, even the balls, there are few people who are making it. But when you wanted a really quality gloves, you need to import it. So cost of import becomes the price of the item, double the price of the actual price of the game. So that's a challenge.
Yeah.
So we are very contemplating. That's one of the reason, like the why I'm attending. In fact, traveling not only to meet the coaches, also meeting the vendors, especially baseball gear vendors, to see that what is the best thing that we can do so that it can the players or whoever the clubs will get these things at affordable price. That's the main aim of it.
Yeah, and I could, boy, you mentioned vendors. I could see the vendors. Vendors going crazy. 1.4 billion people. Baseball, baseball, baseball. Let's get in there. The sooner you get in there, the better for those vendors. I agree. That's awesome. And the other part of all this, are the fields. I'm interested in the fields because are the fields cricket fields? Are they rough where the kids, the ball bounces a little different, so they have to learn quicker? What's that look like?
See, having said that, there is a structure of like federation and the state associations, a huge number of roughly like 70 to 80 clubs, which are very small town level clubs. There is no dedicated baseball fields so far. Yes, you might have seen in the internet, there was one which is at Gurgaon area, which is near to our capital, New Delhi. The field is called Field of Dreams. It's been started in it's a Field of Dreams. It has been started by one individual in 2017, but I'm not sure whether still that field is there. The question is about where are these players playing? The good question is that all these federation folks and association folks and club folks, where are they playing? They in fact playing in the field, either the football field or a cricket field. There are huge number of cricket fields, no doubt. Like you go, may you find a field, maybe 10 fields or 30 fields or 50 fields in each town. There is a huge number of fields. So far they've been trying to actually play this in those cricket or a football fields.
As I travel the world, I get a kick sometimes out of people because they say, oh, baseball, you need a field. Really? You can play it anywhere, right? You just need 4 bases. For young kids, you don't even need 4 bases. You can make a 3-base game, which is more interesting. There's more action. And kids love action. So you start them off with that. So you can play in a soccer field. Say, well, you need a fence. Okay, maybe you need a fence, but you can get a plastic fence, that you can put around. There's always something you can do. And that's what I love. I love to see kids that are playing on fields that are not always baseball, because if they always play on the perfect field, they don't become as good a player. I also noticed that, or I wanted to know more than anything, I'm sure our audience does too, roughly, when you talk about number of players in the game of baseball, all levels, how many are we talking about right now as of today?
So as of today, like we have done this exercise, we have meticulously done this exercise because I wanted to substantiate my business case with the investors also. It's not just like a passion, right? It's also a business. When I'm really talking about a business, I need to give that, substantiate why they should believe that it is a business for them. Like when we have done this exercise with one of these top 4 consulting firm, that is where I've been talking about, like they're estimating like 10 million the bat and ball players in this country. Coming to especially the baseball, so the figures is really good number. There is a figures is good number. So I do have, in fact, a list which we have collected the players so far visible, there are 20,000 players who are been actively playing baseball. And when I include that softball also, this number goes to 60,000 number. 60,000.
Wow. Why so many more softball players?
Because softball has a longer history, because softball federation started in India in 1965 itself.
Is that women's, men's combination, fast pitch, slow pitch?
Yes, it's a man and women is already there, but there won't be much an activity. So yeah, association is really doing good. Like I could see like all the senior, if you look at like there is a schedule or a charter for every federation to kind of do it annually. Like they need to conduct the senior tournament, a junior tournament, or a sub-junior national level tournament. Someone to play a national level tournament, they need to first participate at a state level tournament, which is like, in fact, we have a 29 states. So assuming that we are having like a 29 associations, state associations, there is already an activity of a baseball and a softball happening at each state level for the seniors, sub-juniors and juniors, and similarly for the at a national level. So if I try to kind of club these all the numbers, there would be like a 200 tournaments every year. There are happening.
Wow.
They are happening.
Wow. And you know what? The other part of all this is the economics. Does the government help with the funding, or is it privately funded everywhere else? You know, wherever the kids are playing, they kind of pay to play. How does that work?
So there are two things. Always the government actually do fund, because obviously there is a huge budget for the sports. But in terms of the number of sports is also, there is like a large list of the number of the sports. Recently, when I looked at like the government recognized sports, there is a list of 56 sports are there. There is a list of 56 sports. So every time, though there was a category of a priority category and maybe non-priority and maybe list, there is 3 lists are there. So each time, whether the state unit or a national unit, whether it's an association or a federation, do conduct an activity, depending on the category in which the sport is, government actually give a financial fund to them. Like let's say like you are doing a national event, there is some amount will be allocated for the sport, depending on the whether the sport is in the list 1, 2 or 3. And similarly, if it is a priority sports, let's take in India, there is a priority sports like a badminton. Let's take in a badminton, individual sports. When it is in individual sports, it has a fund. It also actually really kind of cover the cost of the coaches to travel and all that rest of the things. If it is in the list 3, you may not get the cost to cover your travels, but definitely there would be a fund which has been given to the national federation, and national federation has some discretion to how to kind of give those benefits to the players and coaches, and also take care of the expenses to organize this event.
Hey, Vamsi, the US, 350 million people live in this country, approximately. Amateur players, 26 million we have in the US. So obviously we have a lot of levels. You know, with India, 1.4 billion, already 10 million bat and ball players, great opportunities. And obviously Major League Baseball sees this opportunities. They open an office in India in 2019. You know, they've sent envoy coaches there. They've done school programs. Now the Federation, yes, is the governing body, and one of the responsibilities should be to introduce the sport to very young kids so you can grow the game. Also, Major League Baseball is doing that. Between yourself, everybody, what are you doing when you go into the schools? How do you introduce the game? How do you get kids to play it? Maybe you have some special ideas that other countries aren't doing.
See, let me talk very honestly here, rather than looking at whether it is my business, whether it's a major league baseball business, whether it's a federation responsibility. So anyone would obviously love to actually participate with these federation events, because there is some automatic benefit someone to playing with the federation. The reason, because federation has been like a governing body. And when you play for the federation tournaments, they do have some certificate which eventually give you some credit for you to get your job and get into the college or a university. That's main like a motto. Suppose someone like at the high school level or maybe at a middle school level wanted to play at the sub junior or a junior level or the college level or a senior level tournament conducted by the federation. Obviously, when they participate in the federation event, they do have a credit which they can actually redeem kind of a stuff when they get into the universities or wanted to get into the jobs. That's biggest motivation for someone to participate. That's how the federations will actually try to tap on the grassroots. Apart from the development, try to actually capture the largest section of the market. It's okay. Second is that in terms of the private entity, whether like a Major League Baseball or myself as a Premier League Baseball, whoever independent, like it's not about just only the baseball, other sports also, whether it's a kabaddi or a badminton or a cricket, whatever the sport is concerned, private entities, they go with a different model. How do they go with a different model? They will say that, okay, you pay for that play and we'll give you better opportunities. What are those better opportunities? You will get a better field, a better coaches, because you are paying for that. Okay, they can afford better coaches, whether national level coaches or international level coaches, better fields. And especially they can actually take them to the international tours. Let's say there is a lot of people allowed to actually travel internationally and play with the international players. Let's say football is concerned, a lot of people as traveling to the European countries, so they would actually play with the European colleges. Fast forward, I would also wanted to see the baseball players also looking for such kind of an opportunity, because if you look at globally, like whether US, whether Korea, Japan, Australia, these are the kind of nations, they have a very rich infrastructure in the baseball side and good talent. So when the people wanted to after having some kind of a developmental training in India, if they wanted to competitively improve their game, I think they should start playing with the better teams. I think that's an opportunity. So to answer to the questions, federations will go to the schools and colleges with a model of, okay, you play the sport, you have a benefit of like these credits. Major League and myself go to the schools with like asking them, okay, you pay for that, we'll give a better quality of the play, better infrastructure, opportunity you to play with the international players and travel opportunity. This is how the things works.
Okay, now, interesting enough, you're all interested in getting young kids to play the game, because without having young kids, you're not going to have a sport. You're not going to be able to grow the game. And I understand the goal at the high level, because they're going to go to maybe high school, college, professional baseball, professional league in India. I understand that part. The important thing here is now, Vamsi, you go to a school and now you have to convince a young kid, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, 11, come play baseball. Now, they got the skills because they play cricket maybe, but now you got to convince them to play baseball and maybe not cricket. Is that easy? And how do you do that? How do you sell them on the game?
We have done that experiment. We in fact done the experiment. When you look at like some of our like postings, like we also been to a lot of schools. All we started in the May 2019. Unfortunately, we need to see the COVID hitting us from like a March 2020. Within that, like May 2019 to the March 2020, within the span of 7 to 8 months, we went to almost 30 plus schools around, like especially in the southern India, 30 plus schools to give a demo. In fact, there is a lot of people. One thing which always really excites me is that kids love the sport, whether it is a cricket, even like it. So there is nothing like, there is no, in fact, a rule that only Indian kids should love only the cricket. There is no rule written in any of the any of our religious books, or maybe any of our like a school books. So
is it possible they play both sports?
Absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. See, so in terms of the participation, like I say, that's where it is like there is no. See, the kid actually can play both cricket and a baseball, no issues. But in terms of their competition, if they wanted to participate in the competition, they need to actually have to go through some rigorous training, whether it is a federation given training, or MLB given training, or myself, like whatever the organization that I'm running is actually doing it, they have to go through that. So do they have the time to really kind of go through all the training for more than one sport is the question. See, kids in India love to actually study a lot, because every love to study a lot, have the more degrees than any other country. That is what I believe in,
Yes.
but I don't know whether I'm true or not. Sorry to make such kind of statements, but like that's how it is. We want more degrees. So along with the more degrees, the sport is also we love it. So that's where, like, I have given the best example as my example. So when I go and ask for money from my parents to buy a slugger, they themselves suggested to buy a cricket bat. Both are bats only. You play cricket, because that's where, like, so question about, if you kind of bring the baseball gear to the affordability of the, like, a children and a parent to the lowest level, whatever that, like, there would be like a very affluent people will be there. There are people with like a middle income. There would be people like where they can't afford much for the sports. If as long as school is providing the facilities, absolutely okay. If the school is not providing that, if the parent wanted to afford that, they always see that what is the best thing they can afford. If they wanted to afford a cricket bat or a baseball slugger. So if the prices are the same, I think the kids have a more choice rather than influenced by the budgets of the parents.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we love to do on the show is always talk to different countries, because there's always different ideas. And obviously the show's called Baseball Outside the Box, because we want to think outside what everybody else is doing, because it's easy to follow what everybody else does. But what is happening in India, I think can be very interesting. Now, one of the areas we talk a lot about on the show, and I think everybody agrees, once you get the player to play the game, the young kid, now you got to keep them in the game. And the only way to keep them in the game is to have very good coaching. Now, most baseball countries around the world, the best ones, have really good coaching programs. A lot of them run by the government or funded by the government. What's going on in India as far as to try to get more people to coach, train them to coach in a good way, and making sure that they keep the players in the game long term? Because I always hear, oh, you got to have fun, and then nobody knows how to have fun or how to teach the kids. So talk about what's going on in India with coaches' education.
So this is a very interesting. I have a slightly different view here, Peter. So
and
this is very right.
Vamsi, we love different views.
So it's very right. Like, let's look at like players and the kids. Definitely 100% love their coaches, and they wanted to continue with their coaches as long coach is really giving them a good opportunity and a good improvement on the play. But that's okay. But I think the self-motivation for the players, and in fact, people, when they started learning sport, the bigger motivation for them, along with the coach care, is that they look at the opportunities. Holistically, what kind of opportunities that I would get if I start playing cricket, when I start playing baseball, if I start playing the football. So in India as a country, if I look at the sports at the professional level, so cricket stands much above all the other sports. Cricket stands much above all the sports. So there is a larger section of the people see, for them there is an opportunity for them in the cricket, because there is already a big opportunity for them playing at a professional level. Mm-hmm. So if I look at other countries, maybe if we go back, come to the US itself, whether it's a baseball like MLB, whether it's a basketball, NBA, hockey, or maybe a rugby, which is football and soccer, there are like almost like at a same professional level. So here, the different view that I'm talking of, Peter, is that about like an opportunity for the players and the kids. So they see a more opportunity at this stage. But still, there are people who love the sports. Eventually, we wanted to encourage them. Right now, the biggest motivation for them to keep in the sport is their coaches. Absolutely, you are right on that. But a longer run, it may not be sustainable because we may not get the same good coach everywhere. If I kind of create an opportunities for them, whether the professional sports as a national level sport, I think there are automatically player will have a self motivation to keep on the team, keep with the coach.
Yeah, so you're saying basically that if they see an opportunity to coach full time or get, be paid to coach, do that for a living, there's a passion. Now they help their kids a lot more because they see that goal. And I think you got a great point there, because if you look at Taiwan, Taiwan, the sport is in the schools, and the schools are educators, right? They get paid not only teach, but they get paid to teach the game of baseball.
Correct.
Yeah, and I can see that instead of having volunteers, and volunteers are great, but you're right, that's not sustainable because volunteers change a lot. So that's a great example. I'm really happy you brought that up. And I'll tell you what, I think more countries need to look at that. We were just talking recently with not only Haiti, but also Belize. They're looking at having former players coach the younger kids and have an opportunity to have a job at the same time. So now they look at it long-term more, and that grows the game. What are the obstacles? I mean, what are we talking about here in India? What's the obstacles of growing the game of baseball that you have to overcome? What obstacles do you have?
Already actually said one thing, because sports gear, baseball gear, supply, there is no enough supply. If someone wanted to kind of get the sports gear, that baseball gear, they need to pay a lot of price. It's sometimes it is not affordable. So people might, maybe like 20% or 30% of the people who has the interest but unable to kind of get afford that. So that is the 30% of the people losing that. Second is that the grounds, where the fields I've been talking about. When I say ground, we usually call it a cricket ground, like it's a fields. So where are the fields? Because right now, when people looking at like a facilities, like when the other day when we actually like on the same APCA conference, I have seen lot of on the trade show, lot of people especially have their business on the baseball fields itself. Isn't it? So many fields, whether it is I'm going to be a summer league or maybe a summer college league or maybe some kind of kids league or whatever that, there are independent investors or sports companies exclusively meant for these sports facilities, like especially baseball fields. So because they are doing it because they could see a revenue or a business, because so many people. So similarly, if India can think like having someone actually taking it as like a, because one person, like suppose whoever is actually really looking at the promotion of like getting the professional baseball, they can't actually really have the every field at every city, right? So the larger section of the people should look at like, oh, so if I have a baseball facility, like whatever the numbers that I said, like 20,000 baseball people, including the softball people of a 60,000, can they make a business just having the field for baseball or a softball? So if the people actually start investing on the fields and investing on the sports gear, whether baseball, softball gear, making the prices, making those affordable for the players and the parents, automatically this will grow. So sorry.
Go ahead.
So the question, to answer to the question is that how this will be grown, I think the participation from like a different players, ecosystem, like apart from the national federations and independent private leagues like MLB or a PLB and other sports companies, the sports, right now there are like sports companies who do maintain the cricket grounds. If they can actually really think of maybe 1% of the cricket grounds, can they really think of a business case whether there's converting these grounds into the baseball fields? Or maybe there are a lot of football fields also there. So can they really think about like maybe 1% or 5% of the football fields convert into the baseball fields? Then they really do. That's why if the ecosystem of all these sports is supported, obviously the sport will grow. Because right now schools are open. but schools are open, but schools can't afford that space for, like, every school can't afford, right? There must be someone to really kind of see that, aggregate these schools, town schools, and see that they can best utilize that, the whatever that field for the baseball.
Yeah, that makes sense from a business standpoint. Multi-dimensional fields where you can
Fields.
play several sports. Now you have several fans. And if the businesses are looking at baseball, they're going, "Oh, wait a second, between baseball and softball, already 60,000 players,
Yes.
1.4 billion people. Major League Baseball is doing a lot of work there. This game is going to grow and their business will grow. They just have to get on board now because, if baseball grows fast in India, and they're behind the 8 ball, then they're going to have to catch up trying to build these multi-fields. So I think that's a great point that you bring up. I want to tell the folks, so baseball in India is growing 60,000 between softball and baseball. Think about that. Next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Central Time on Facebook Live, also Twitter and other social media networks, we will have Rick Dell, Major League Baseball International in China, because we're going to be talking about what Major League Baseball has been doing in China there too. And one of the things that they've been doing is also educating coaches. So Vamsi, I agree. I think what you're doing coaching wise, field wise, it looks like around the world, the major two obstacles seem to always be coaching, fields, and equipment. Those three are the major three obstacles in helping them grow the game. Tell us, what about the skill level of the kids? Like, if they play cricket, we know they got great hand-eye coordination. They're developing an arm. What other skills do they have that relate real well to baseball? Baseball needs a lot of skills, mental, physical. So what other skills do the young kids in India have that are good for baseball?
So, skill-wise, there is a lot of talent. I can actually in fact, talk about the very specifically this confederation of baseball clubs, which we have started. So they set to have the club national tournament coming month, in the February month. Lot of clubs has shown interest to participate in the club national event. To select the best club to actually really give a very competitive game for all the clubs to play in this tournament, we traveled around India and actually taken the trials of those teams who is going to participate in the club nationals. So I will bring you some of these facts. I have identified 2 pitchers right now within the age. One is like 18 years. The second one is 22 years. They both are actually pitching at a speed of 91 miles per hour. 91 miles per hour. So you briefly talk about when we started this show about like $1 million arm. Yeah. If you kind of go back to like the $1 million arm program, that time the pitcher throw the ball with the speed of 84 miles per hour. Yes. So if you see that there is already an improvement of like 7 miles per hour. So see, automatically there is an improvement is happening, but talent is being very scattered right now. They don't have an enough opportunity. I'm not talking about just we have a great talent because we can throw the ball speed, because in the pitching just speed is only not the talent, right? There are other things. So what I've been talking about, inherently there is a talent about like throwing a ball at 91 miles per hour. If he get into the right player development with the right coach, definitely these are the kids who would be potentially the players for the pro leagues, whether it is an Indian pro league or American pro league or a Japanese pro league, whatever that. There is a potential. By looking at the talent, there would be, when we have like, all that, because when we all this professional journey of the baseball, we start in the 2019 itself, although I've been the player from the 1992. You've been there in the history, you've been the national coach for the US, the history, like what's happening around the globe in the baseball front. Once someone actually can see like from the country of like India of 1.4 billion people, a star, whether it's a pitcher or a hitter or like whatever, that a star playing in a minor leagues or a major leagues. So whole country would be like so excited In fact, that's a kind of big like, so even parents would actually be thinking about, okay, even my kid also wanted to play baseball. My kid also wanted to get into the pro baseball. So the first one and the second one is the really the obstacle, and then all hope market is open. Like rest, whatever the like we've been talking about 10 million bat and ball people, they definitely in the kind of a competition to be a baseball player, I think.
Absolutely. And folks, if you're joining us on Facebook, any questions, write them down in the comments section. I'll try to pick them up from you. I appreciate you joining us. You know, if you think about, we're talking about baseball in India, it is really growing and developing. Over 200 tournaments in a year that are going on there. And obviously it's a big country, you got to travel and all that. You know, you need money to do that. And if you haven't watched $1 Million Arm, check it out, because, you know, you had a 19-year-old javelin thrower named Rinku Singh and also Dinesh Patel. Patel made it in the Gulf Coast League. And I think one of those kids made it to AAA. So could you imagine? And that was back then, you know, when they made the movie, they sent him to Tom House at USC. You know, Tom worked with him. He increased their velocity. One made it to AAA. Could you imagine? And I could see Major League Baseball, why they're in these big countries. But could you imagine one of the Indian players making it to the major leagues? Because now these kids see that and they go, wow, the major leagues. Now I can do that too. That's got to be a big goal for you and also for Major League Baseball.
That's true. That's true, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it's right, because it would really increase the game. It would really help. Hey, before we jump into the PBL or PLB, the league, what position did you play?
Myself.
Yeah.
I'm the first base.
First base. And you started, what year did you say you started playing baseball?
1992.
And how long did you play for?
I played for 4 years, from 1992 to 1996.
And I
college
want the
level,
folks, yeah,
college level baseball.
College level. And I want the folks there. There's baseball in India in college, or did you play in the States?
It's the States only, because that's where like we in the college where I studied, we used to play a lot of baseball. But as a tournament, if you wanted to participate, you need to participate in the state level competition in India itself. I played in India only, not in the States.
Yeah, and I want the folks to know, because before we jump into the league, I want them to know your background a little bit. You played, then you got into business. Just recently, you know, I call it, you put your money where your mouth is, because you are funding and started, you know, with investors also, you're funding a league there, a pro league, you know, the Premier League Baseball India. But tell us a little bit about how you got into business, what you do, and then we'll get into the league.
Sure. So in fact, after this college, I got into like any other kid from India. I got into the IT field, information technology. I have done my job. It's not a business. Like I have done my regular job with the 2 Wall Street companies for 18 years. I have spent my time actually working as a business analyst and whatever the program management and director and so on, like for 19 years. During all the tenure of 18 years, I have been traveling across the globe, especially the countries like Japan, Australia, and US. So my passion about the baseball, I always keep updating myself what's happening in this country, what is the new thing that is coming up in this country, how can we really kind of really do something back in India. That has been always been there in my mind for the last 18 years. So finally, after spending my 18 years of a professional career working for like a fintech companies or Wall Street companies, then I decided to go back and settle down at India. So when I really done that, like when the basic objective itself is go back and do something in the sports. Whether I wanted to really start that time a baseball or the different sports, still haven't decided when I left my job. But I went there in the 2019, rather than actually trying something else, again, going back to the baseball, let's do baseball, be there, whatever the state it is. Let me start from wherever it is. That's a kind of like, let me start, whether it is zero ground level or maybe 50% or 15%, whatever maybe. I decided, let's start. So as a business, I'm not into any other sports. We focus on the baseball property, which is a professional property, PLB, Professional League Baseball, its marketing. So our objective is to actually develop the professional league and market it so that we will ready to support the whole ecosystem, because I'm not really kind of starting a professional league without having a ground built. So we really kind of hand in hand work with everyone. We work with the national federation, we work with the state federation, we work with the private people, private clubs. And we are open, it's not restricted, we have opened that. But our business model is to develop the professional league. First ever professional league, baseball league, India, PLB, and make it self-sustainable, because right now investors are there to fund it, whether in terms of how to monetize it, they do have a business plan, but we wanted to make it a self-sustainable in a longer run. To self-sustain it, we need to work with the whole baseball ecosystem.
Vamsi, look, I know there's people listening and they're thinking this guy's out of his mind. Okay. Anybody, but we also know that if you're going to do something different in another country, you got to be a little crazy. You got to step outside the box a little bit, because starting a pro league, a lot of people have tried it in many countries and have failed at it also. Some have succeeded. I know you're a business guy, and I looked at your business plan. I mean, you put together something really nice here. Looks very professional. You've done your homework. What gives you the idea? Because starting a pro league is great and it's going to give players an opportunity, but what gives you the idea that this is going to be successful?
See, in terms of look at the elements that really has to consider for the pro league. So do we have that momentum? The sports momentum in India is not as a country. So obviously, on a business opportunity, but maybe I may not be really get into the whole set of business secrets right now, but holistically, when you look at in India, globally, when you look at like India stands 5th or 6th largest economy, depending on, because right now we are like a $3 trillion GDP. That is what it is, US being the top, and then China, and Germany and Japan. So as a business guy, we have actually understood and break down all the countries' GDP. When you really look at that, on an average, in the top 10 economies across the globe, except India, every country, 3% of the GDP of their economy is a sports economy. And India, it is 0.03%. You check it. So US having that, whatever the 22 trillion GDP, their sports is about like almost $68 billion.
Wow.
Sports business. And we being the $3 trillion economy, our sports is not in the millions. It's in the millions.
How's the league going to be set up? How's the league structure?
So league right now, we are going a phased manner. So league is going to start from 2024 and the 2024, and the league 2024 and 2025, 2 seasons. All the players will be managed by the league, not the clubs. 2024, and means all the contracts, all the player contracts would be done with the league, not with the clubs.
What would the clubs do?
So
on the marketing?
So clubs actually takes care of the ownership, the whole operations of the club, including the fields, marketing, and rest of the merchandising, fan engagement of the club and everything, except the players. And we have set some kind of a criteria, and we also would be segregating this set of players into the grade A, grade B, grade C, and grade D, 4 level of grades. And depending, there would be a cap, and the clubs actually has to buy these players from the league, and there is a cap. How many grade A players, grade B players, grade 3 and grade C and D players will be getting into these clubs? This is only for the season 24 and 25 only. And 26 onwards, there is a slight change in the plan. We should start actually giving out these players to the clubs, and there would be a lot of other criteria who will go to the what club and all. So that's not an important point to discuss right now, but 26 on boards players will be associated with the clubs. From there, it's all again normal course of business, whether the player transfer is allowed, not allowed. So what is that, like how long one should be there in the club before he transferred to the other club. And these set up the rules will be different. But the so why is the question, right? So
Yeah, why 2020? That was my question. 2024 to 25. Why these special rules?
why the special rule is that whole capital of the technical capability of player management, player development, I think it would be a very hard job to distribute among 8 clubs.
Yeah.
Distribute among 8 clubs. So because now the club's responsibility to find the fields, develop the fields, market the clubs, that itself is a full job. So the whole simple thing is I wanted to centralize the player development one place. That if it's not physically, it could be different places, but whole management of the player development of the professional players will be centralized so that we can really meet these targets. Otherwise, if you kind of decentralize it, there would be other issues comes into the picture, because one club see a better player, then that club wanted to poach the player. So all these controversies, because we would be actually dealing with a lot of politics rather than the sports. I wanted to just avoid the politics in the first 2 years, make sure that players is not been associated, so there won't be any conflict among the clubs. Clubs would be developing in their marketing strategies and the field development.
And I love that there's a cap, because then you don't have, 1 or 2 teams who dominate. When you look around the world, a lot of times you might see 2 clubs dominate the whole league, and the other clubs are just there just for the season. So I love that part. And Vamsi, I know you've done your homework, because you and I have talked about amazing some of the things you're doing. I love the idea of you controlling 2024, 25, because the players, you almost have every team is kind of equal when it comes to player talent. Now, where are these players coming from? All from India the first 2 years?
So let me say, like I've been talking to many people. In fact, I should not take those names. So I've been talking to AA leagues globally, AA leagues already. I right now, I already have some permission to talk, but right now let's be not talk about those leagues. So we already have done MOUs with the AA leagues. Couple of AA leagues, they are ready to actually send their players. So the composition, let's know team composition, where are these players? So what we looked at is that 60% of the players would be the domestic Indian origin, Indian players, like a domestically developed players, and 40% of the players would be the imported players coming from the outside. Those would be part of these players. So how these 60% of the players will be developed? Right now, they're already a talent. It's not a huge talent. There is already certain section of the people. So I don't talk about the quality of the players right now, because this is not really kind of I can't really bring out the stats to say that. I can only say that there are 2 players which I have identified, have seen, who can throw at a 91 miles per hour, but that itself should not be the benchmark for every player, right? So let's not talk about that, the quality of the player. Let's show the source of the players. Source of the player, very simple. From 1987 onwards, India has the national tournament where all the states would be coming in and playing on. That is one source. I can actually take the best players from that. We will approach the national federation. We'll give that. This is what the player will be developed, like they will be developed into the professional development and get into the professional tournament. That is one source. Second source is that would be a longer time. It will be like we don't get it for the season for 24 and 25. We already worked out a plan, because I already identified 2 best coaches in US, which I don't want to right now name right now. They would be heading the high school level baseball and college level baseball. They would be in charge.
In India?
In India, yes.
So high school baseball is going to start in India? along
High
with
school
college baseball.
baseball and college baseball will be started in India. It will be
All right,
started
now
in India.
I want to go back to the double A. You mentioned double A.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
assuming double A players, single A players.
Yes.
I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here because, my question would be, why would I, as a major league team, want to send my double A player to India when the level of competition is not going to be strong right away? I've got to keep my guys playing at a high level. Why would I send them there?
See, double A, see again, Peter, like I'm not talking about not talking about a major league standard. I'm talking about a double A league standard only. Double A league will have the major league players, and also there are players like other players which may not be really qualified for the major leagues, right? Isn't it? So in terms of the what level we will bring, that's where I'm not really going to talk about the stats, like what level of the players will be there in the 24 and 25, but I'm just limiting this conversation to the source of the players. Source of the players will be from the international AA leagues and from the people who will be developed from the high school and colleges in the longer run.
Yes.
They may not be available for 24 and 25. And the other source would be the players who've been playing the national level tournament in India for the quite some time.
So we're talking about double A international level players,
Yes.
which is understandable. You have to start somewhere. And that's a great place to start. Vamsi, tell us, we're close to the end here. Appreciate your time. You've done a great job. What else? Anything else about the league? Because folks, as far as the professional league that's going to start in 2024, we will put Vamsi's information on our show notes so you can contact them if you have more, or in case you want to be an investor. I'm sure you're looking for investors also. What else are we missing here with the league? What's unique about it?
So unique about is that as a league, so right now we are well funded. So there is no question of backing out from this professional baseball league. It is been right now is been well funded. It can sustain whatever the time it has to be sustained. So the question right now, what the marketing that the company is doing is that more about the building the club. So I want to talk about the how we are actually going to really help the clubs to build. The first major thing that we have done that we already done MOU with the whatever that, like again, maybe next show, definitely let me actually bring those names. We already have an MOUs with the professional clubs outside India. So they're already talking to us, taking the 12% of the stake in these Indian clubs. 12% of the stake in these Indian clubs.
Interesting.
So the reason why, see, building an infrastructure overnight, we can't build an infrastructure. If you wanted to really build a baseball field, forget about the whole clubhouse and all that, except it's just a field and the players seating capacity, whatever is required, that itself takes like 2 to 3 years to build it, isn't it? So the way we are modeling is that you might understand why we are actually centralizing the players in the 24 and 25 is that in case if we can't catch up infrastructure development of the baseball field by 2024, I do have an option taking all the players to the international facilities, getting them trained, because those are the league players, not the club players at the same place.
Wow, so that's great.
That is where, right? So we do already have an MOUs with the professional teams outside India. I wanted to name right now where they are ready to accept us to give the training. So because it's very well versed, because we don't have it. If I try to look at this seasons, right, whether MLB season, maybe NPB season, or a Korean KBO season, or ABL season, whatever the season, that the season duration, it won't actually conflict any of these seasons. So I can best utilize their facilities. If at all, we are not able to catch up building those facilities, we can best utilize this facility, getting their players all trained out there, come back and play in whatever the fields which we are ready to play on that.
Yeah, it looks like that you really covered, all the obstacles, all the areas that you're going to get a roadblock and you got to go somewhere else. And boy, you really done a good job there. How many teams we talking about when 2024?
2024 would be 8 teams because already identified that cities. It is there in our business plan, whatever the flyer that I have given to you in the Chicago. So these
Yep.
are the 8 cities. These are the 8 cities.
Yep, I got it right here, folks. It's awesome. It's well organized, well put together. 8 teams. Okay, now in cricket, and excuse me if I make a mistake here, but in cricket, I think there's breaks for like tea breaks sometimes, but in baseball, we like to entertain people on the field. Are you going to be doing some entertaining? Because that'd be interesting, for the folks in India. Maybe they haven't seen all the different entertaining that goes on between innings. Is that part of the excitement?
Yeah, because that's me, right now, whole professional sports is more about, you would know, right? Because we have done this study globally, the second biggest entertainment is the sports industry. Second biggest entertainment, not even the Tollywood or a Bollywood. It's not a movie industry. It is the sports industry biggest entertainment.
Wow.
See, so obviously here the fans is first thing they come to see the sport, no doubt about it. Second thing is that they may not have the same enthusiasm to love the sport for the whole 3 hours, maybe whatever the 2.5 hours, 3 hours. So out of the breaks, like see, there are really so many right now. Given that an IPL is we already have a good fan base for each club and even football, and also there are many people, marketing people, they know how to really kind of take best use of that time, whatever the breakout time, whether it is a 2 minutes time or 1.5 minute time. So in the whole sports, this professional sports, ticketing revenue, it won't be much, right? So it's more about the broadcasting revenue. You know it very well. So viewers sitting on the before like watching on the, whether it's a streams like an OTT platforms or a regular streaming or maybe what the TV channels are like, they wanted to see something coming up in the breaks, whether exciting things. So whether the player performing those exciting things or someone else performing that subredding things, let's decide on that. But it all depends on the situation, like whether what is the hot topic of the day. Because so again, like we don't wanted to cover the history, right? We wanted to cover the very latest topic of the day. So yeah, we do have the plans. That's how the investors would make a money over there.
Well, again, you guys have a big advantage because your fans are used to sitting there for 5 days watching a cricket game. So, like I said earlier in the show, for 3.5 hours, going to go like that for them. It's going to be
Peter. Right now, there are like not many people. Yes, there are really cricket loving people who love to actually be there 5 days and watch matches. Now it's all about 2020. You just finish up the match in 20 overs one side, another 20 overs another side. That's it.
All right, now we're getting close here, and we'll finish it off soon. But I was in Beijing for the Olympics with the WBSC. And, anytime you introduce a new sport, now I get that you guys have 20,000 players and you already have some fans, but for a pro league, you're going to need a lot more fans.
Sure.
And I remember in Beijing, the ball was hit in foul territory into the stands and people were clapping, because they didn't know what was going on, right? In cricket, you can hit the ball that way, behind you, left, right, you can hit it everywhere. And so the rules are a little bit different, even though the similarities are there. You got to educate the fans on the game. How are you going to do that before they even come see it?
I think pretty much right now, internet would be the big source of information for them. I don't need to really specially design a particular course, but there would be a lot of teasers that will be really sending out to the fans to really understand that. But one thing I wanted to mention, Peter, is that, see, you might see a slight change in the rules to make the fans entertained. So it's that when we say pro league in India may not be the pro league in US and pro league in Australia, to entertain the Indian fans. So as innovation coming from like a 6 day to 5 day to 1 day to 20 overs and 10 overs. So you would definitely see some customized rules in Indian Pro League.
Yes.
You may
Like what?
surprised.
Wait, don't keep us hanging. Give us a couple at least.
So it's like when the batter hit the ball, he must run, right? He must run.
Yes.
So take an example. I'm hypothetical case. I'm not really kind of just speculating. Assume that we are not forcing them to run, just giving an option not to run also. Just think about it. Think
Sure.
about it. So then usually why I think this is very, I'm talking about a very common fan. I'm not talking as a baseball player. Let's me talking as a common man. What I need when I watch the sport is the entertainment. Apart from the sport, like whatever the player and entertainment. Suppose because when the star cricketer comes in, what is the basic expectation of the fan from the star cricketer when he is doing the batting? He want the batter to the century, a double century or a triple century. That is what, more runs to be made. If the fan is for the bowler, he has to take the more wickets, 1 wicket, 2 wicket, 3 wickets. So for a baseball fan also, for a hitter, he want the hitter to do the home run. So by mistake, suppose whatever the hit he has taken hasn't actually reached to the home, the home, whatever the fence, out of the fence, but it only reached to the second base or a third base, but it's not a catch out. It is still there. It is ball in play, and if he not to choose, he choose to not to run, rather choose not to run, and so there is a fan who would be expecting that his player may hit a home run in the next ball. So it could be completely hypothetical, just to make you kind of entertain from the show. But certainly there would be certain tweaks, so only with an object to entertain the fans.
I like that. Thinking outside the box. You got to know your audience. You got to know the people in India, what they will like, what they don't like, and you tailor the game a little bit towards them. I think that's fantastic. As long as we're not, reinventing the whole game, I think that's great. Because you got to
maybe we can't reinvent it, because the players from, if I'm taking from the A League players, that they may not agree to those kind of rules. Just I need to make a trade-off between that. What level of compromise that we can do, and how much a due diligence and negotiation that I can do with my players and the rest of the national federations and the private leagues. That's where the trade-off. So when the trade-off is the best interest of the fan, that is where the business is all about.
Love it. Vamsi, this is a great way to end the show. Listen, I can't thank you enough. I know you've been busy traveling. I mean, looking at your schedule here, Florida, Boston, Chicago. I think it keeps going all over
Los Angeles.
Yeah, Los Angeles, New York, Washington. You're doing your homework. You could tell you're well planned, well organized. I also like that you put your money where your mouth is in starting a pro league in India. I think it's got great merits. And obviously, Major League Baseball sees huge opportunities in India. And I think it's going to be really successful. I want to wish you the best of luck with the league. And we are always here to assist you any way possible. And can't thank you for your time, for being on the show too.
We want you to come to really kind of talk about when the relay matches are happening in 2024. This is an open invitation for you to Peter to come to India in 2024 to talk about our matches.
Love it. I am excited. I've never been to India. I've been around a lot of Indian people, great people. I can't wait to see the country. I'm excited about that. And thank you so much for the invitation. Vamsi, safe travels, be safe, stay healthy and keep in touch, my friend. I think you're doing great things in India.
Appreciate Peter, and really honored to be in our show. Thank you so much.
All right, folks, that's Vamsi Kondreddy he is with the Pro League there that they're starting. He's the commissioner, also the founder of the Premier League Baseball India. Great show about India baseball and also the Pro League. Folks, special thank you to Brian Crock, our producer with the Lineup Media Group. And I always got to thank our listeners because you are in over 100 countries. Thank you, everybody on Facebook. Go to baseballoutsidethebox.com for the audio. ESPN, thank you for carrying the show on ESPN Honolulu. Check out the audio there. Folks, if you ever need anything, let us know who you want us to listen to, what you want us to do on the show differently. We're always taking feedback. Email me, caliendo19@gmail.com. And remember, stay healthy, be safe. God bless you. And we will see you on the next show.